Most people who are familiar with Christianity know about its major branches, the Orthodox and Catholic churches, as well as Protestantism. Something that has always interested me about that last one is just how extensive the breakdown of Protestantism really is. A term someone might use to describe their religious beliefs, like Catholic or Eastern Orthodox, is pretty well defined in comparison to a title like Protestant. So many other branches like Baptist, Methodist, Lutheran, Evangelical, Calvinist, Anglican, and Unitarian are all part of the Protestant tree, and most of these denominations vary, some more than others, among beliefs and customs. But why is this? Why does Protestantism have such a varied belief pool, but the other branches comparatively don't? What allows Protestantism to vary so much? Now, there is no one obvious answer to a question like this. However, a good place to begin would likely be to draw the distinctions between most Protestant groups and their early beginnings. The word Protestant itself derives from the Latin word for protesting, which isn't coincidental, because that's a perfect word to describe the Reformation. Now, this isn't a video explicitly about the Protestant Reformation, though, so we're only going to focus on prominent groups that formed out of it. In a nutshell, most of the problems the Reformers had with the 16th century Catholic Church revolved around just how powerful it was at the time. The Church held dominion over all of Western Christendom, and had the authority to dictate what the public was taught about Christianity, and what religious practices could be performed in Europe. At the time, the Church had the authority to dictate what teachings were canon and which ones were heretical. Theological disagreements were also at the root of the Reformation. Martin Luther is known for his disdain for the indulgence system, a get-out-of-purgatory free card, which could be purchased from the Church by the families of the dead. Aldrich Zwingli criticized the validity of Catholic communion, and many groups were critical of the practice of infant baptism, regarding baptism as a practice to be done by devout adult believers only. Most Protestant reformers believed that no person or organization, like the Catholic Church, should have so much influence over Christian beliefs and practices. This eventually resulted in the Protestant split from the mainline Catholic Church, and the teachings of the Reformers began to change and adapt into the many denominations we see today. Most denominations differ in beliefs in a similar way that the original Reformers did. Some groups put more emphasis on different practices and tenets. The gospel is at the very heart of evangelicalism, with it being the most important of biblical writings to the group. Some groups challenge common perceptions of God held by other Protestant denominations. Trinitarianism is a pillar of most Christians' understanding of God. It states that there are three key parts, the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, which make up the figure of God. Unitarians reject this notion, instead favoring a view of God as a single or unitary figure. All of these groups, however, are still classified as Protestants. Ultimately, the religious changes of the Protestant Reformation helped to keep a centralized organization from having the authority to dictate the validity of Protestant beliefs. The Catholic Church and the Holy See had this influence over religious practices in pre-Reformation Europe. A good way to think about it is that the Catholic Church simply has more defined customs and practices, while Protestantism doesn't. The fact that Protestantism has no centralized authoritative body, like the Catholic Church, allows for the fluidity of beliefs we see today. It's not what Protestantism has that allows it to vary, it's what it doesn't.